Hey students, Pastor Casey here. It is Wednesday, May the 6th, and we, believe it or not, are going right through. We're finishing today with our love-hate series, and this is week 3. So what is all of this on the board? Well, they're brands. They're brands. I'm so glad you asked. I'll let you know they're brands. You see, hopefully a couple of things between cars and items we drink, items we put on our shoes. Disney's up there. Brands, Nintendo, Sony, things that you've heard of. Let me ask you a question. Do you like going to the mall? I know that's kind of an old thing, but believe it or not, the mall used to be the place to be if you were a teenager. And one of the things I find simply fascinating about the mall, and they're still trying to figure out if the mall needs to be opened up this week in Georgia or anything like that. Me, I'm not a big shopping fan. I like going in and out and get what I want. But the thing I find interesting about the mall is all of the brands and how all of these brands spend money on you, money on their advertisements, money on their videos, trying to get you to think why you need that shoe, that Nike, more than you need that Adidas or that Sperry, and why you need to drink Coke instead of drinking Pepsi. They spend money on you. You, whether you realize it or not, make the same kind of brand assumptions about people if you're not careful, if you don't get to know them. And that, unfortunately, in this love-hate kind of series, when we make those kinds of assumptions, we become a hater. So our bottom line this week is to let love fill in the blank. So we asked in week 1 what kind of brand you wanted to have, what you wanted to be known for, ultimately. Stopping the gossip. Week 2, being able to speak into someone's life in love and humility and honesty. And so this week really is about if we're really going to let love be, or our filter, let love fill in the blank, we're going to have to stop making assumptions about people. No gossip, speak in truth, and quit making these crazy assumptions about people's in their brands. We can always fill in the blank. I guarantee you, if I went through this little list right here, you'd be able to answer these questions. So let's do a little test. I'm going to read a reputation of a brand. You will be able to tell me what it is in just a hot second. So 2 days or less, lightning fast, 2 days shipping, Amazon. Lowest prices always, Walmart. Free music streaming, Spotify. Best chicken sandwiches. I hope you're saying Chick-fil-A, right? No, these companies get these reputations for a reason, and if we're not careful, one of the things that we don't do enough of is watch our own reputations as being a believer. So think about the various groups of kids that belong at your school. We, whether we realize it or not, will brand them into a category. So automatically in your head, you're thinking based on my experiences, maybe even based on some of my insecurities that I have about myself or previous experience with someone in this group, I may assume that entire group, people group, if you will, of your school is all the same way. Let me give you an example. Every rich kid is blank. The people with TikTok clout are blank. The AP honor students at my school are. The cheerleaders at my school are. The people that are really into band are. The kids who vape are. All of those things have a blank at the bottom or at the end. I guarantee you in your own life, you can fill in that blank. I'm going to challenge you with this particular lesson this week to let love be in that blank. The cheerleaders at my school need to be loved. The people that are really into band need to be loved. The AP honor students need to be shown who Jesus is. Every rich kid at my school is loved by God, so therefore I should love him too. We should let love be our blank and not be so worried about all of these brands that we have out there. Our limiting experiences and insecurities cause us to fill in blanks and convince ourselves that we know more about somebody than we actually do. So therefore, if they fill in that, if they're a jock, they're going to be a jock in our brains for the rest of their lives. Nothing's different. If they're a cheerleader, fill in the blank, and you're never going to change your mind. We need a new filter. We need to be looking with the eyes of Jesus into these people's lives, and we need to be asking questions, curious questions, so that we can form honest opinions about who people are. Because you don't want to be branded yourself. You don't want to be pigeonholed into a brand to never get out of, and therefore miss out on relationships. Thankfully, one of the encounters Jesus has gives us a kind of a big deal scenario for us about what would Jesus do kind of moment. So an old-fashioned WWJD. And so Jesus had his own haters with his ministry and in his time, and those were the Pharisees. These were the guys that were the religious crowd. They were so worried about their reputation in the opposite way that they would never get hands-on with the people. They only wanted to tell them how to be closer to God without showing them, or how to pray, or tell them how to pray without praying with them, how to do, be neighborly without being neighborly themselves. You get the picture. They actually started in this incident trying to catch Jesus off guard with questions they hoped would prove he was a phony. So this is a good case scenario for us when it comes to brands and letting love fill in the blank. This is John chapter 8. This is what happens. As he was speaking, the teacher of religious law and Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. So one of these encounters, some people, Pharisees, are gathered around listening to Jesus. They literally catch this lady in this R-rated action, brings her to Jesus, and they are expecting him to have to follow the law of Moses to a T, or it's going to discredit his entire ministry of who he's about. This is a ridiculously good trap set by the Pharisees. Let's keep going. John chapter 8, verse 6. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then he stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said to her, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." Spiritual mic drop moment for us. Jesus blows everyone's mind. It's kind of impossible for us to completely put into context the amount of tension that's in this moment. But they feel like they've got Jesus trapped. And basically Jesus looks at them and says, "You've got a point." Basically Jesus says this: "You're quick to point out what everyone else has gotten wrong. But what about you? Have you gotten it wrong yourself?" One by one, they realize the plan backfires and they disappear. They were so worried about catching this woman in that judgmental action right there. Even if it is an R-rated situation, even if it's a sin situation for her, we're not elevating that. We're elevating Jesus' response. His response should be our response. Let love fill in the blank. What about you? Are you so wrapped up in what other people think about you and your brand that you never reach out and be Jesus to others? Jesus proved that we are more than the assumptions or the judgments others make of us. We are worthy of forgiveness, grace, and a second chance because of his love for us, and we can extend the same forgiveness, grace, and love to others. Are you going to be about your brand? Are you going to be a hater that ultimately fills people up into these self-made, man-made sections? He's just a jock. He's just a band student. He's just an AP honor student. And not get to know these people. Not be Jesus to them. The best thing that we could do for people is to ask Jesus, and this is the challenge for this week, to ask Jesus to let us see others in the way that he does. And for us to ask Jesus for Jesus to give us his eyes. So that's the challenge. In other words, when we fill the blank with judgment or hate, we are only seeing part of a person, their actions and whatever they did wrong or something we don't like. But when we fill in the blank with love, we are seeing others as humans more than what they have or haven't done, but as individuals, as people whose story isn't over yet, whose story isn't even written yet, and we ultimately have no right to base our judgment off of one single occurrence in their entire life, in one day, one moment of time. Our reputation should be that of love. And I hope through this series you've seen that we can either be about love or we can be about hate. We can either be about gossip or stopping that. We can be about ultimately speaking the truth in love or letting that be a hater and letting that person continue on. Or today we can either be about judging a person before we know them or getting our hands dirty and loving a person like Jesus. But we're only going to do that when we see him in Jesus' eyes. So that's the challenge. That is actually the song for you guys as we finish up. We still have Speak Life with Toby Mack. It's going to be there in the video. This week, Give Me Your Eyes by Brandon Heath. What a testimony. What a great song. Even being over a decade old. I want you guys to check that out. They're going to be in the links as well as your discussion questions. Thank you guys for hanging out with us the last 3 weeks. I know this is a little bit crazy and different in a quarantine life, but this is ultimately trying to get you guys to think and trying to get you closer to Christ. Be about love and not hate. This Love Hate series should challenge us to be better people and better followers of Christ. What do you want to be about? What are you worried about most? Ultimately, I hope that you will see people this week in the same eyes and in the same way that Jesus sees us. A sinner that was worthy of the cross, that's worthy of having a relationship with us because he loves us. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'll see you guys next week, and we'll talk to you later.